skills, the control, the punches, kicks, ground control, cage control, all those things matter. And a lot of people that just throw the sport on, they're just looking for, blood and guts out there, just watching people beat each other up. But it's really an art, and that's why we call it mixed martial arts. That's why you and I love the sport so much. We talk fight science. We break the elements down together. We do this on the phone. Now we finally get to do it live for the fans. I love it. Now, Dan Hooker also came out in the media and said that Islam's a cheater. He said he took an IV from a nurse. What is that all about? Did you hear that? Did you hear this talk?
Saline IV that he's talking about, and they're illegal. They didn't used to be, but when USADA took over, what it really does, and you know this from being an athlete, a college athlete, right, Jeff? You know this. So
Yeah.
hydration is so important for fighters. And so when you're cutting as much weight as a lot of these fighters cut, and that's the real problem, is fighters cutting weight. Alex Pereira cutting down to middleweight is literally, I mean, I don't know how he even has bones left in his body because he walks around at like 230. But it's very dangerous. And the rehydration process, especially since they moved the weigh-ins back to the morning of the day before, that helps a lot. But you're not seeing the fighters at their best because they're emaciated 36 hours before they fight. They're skin and bones. They're an Ethiopian Relief Aid pledge commercial from the early 80s. I mean, they're literally, it's just, they're sunken in. There's no water in their bodies. You suck all the water out, then you put it back in. And the saline makes it happen way quicker, right? As you know, when it's the same thing, the electrolytes, the Gatorades, and all that crap you drink. By the way, Body Armor, not Gatorade, just for the record. But anyway,
Yeah.
when you do that, you're replenishing those things. And when you're putting the saline in the IV, you're rehydrating that much faster. It's what they do at the hospital if you pass out in the heat. I live in Arizona, so you know these things. But and you're coming out here, Jeff, so we'll see you. But Hooker has no proof. Until they have proof, Islam's camp's denying it. Supposedly he hired a nurse. He had a bad weight cut. It's always a bad weight cut for him. He's a big, that's the thing, is he's really, if you think about it, a 170 guy. And that's the thing about Volkanovski, man. The guy, he made his bones, playing rugby at over 200 pounds, sparred with heavyweights and light heavyweights. But I think that this is going to end up being a non-story. Even if there was a story here, it would be squashed. So you need like Ray Donovan to fix this one, but I wouldn't expect to come out of this. And let's not forget, Islam almost broke Dan Hooker's arm off at one point. So there's that.
There's that too. So I really appreciate that feedback. So again, we talk about all sorts of different things, and we break these fights down, and we each have our own favorites, and talk about the odds and all this cool stuff. And I think, going back to watching that whole card, I thought was pretty good, to be honest with you. Not just the Volkanovski Islam fight, but the fights that led up to it. Obviously, we watching the prelims. I mean, they start these fights now at 6:00, and you watch them all the way till like 1:00 in the morning. But you've sat cage side, cage side C MMA. That's your brand, and you've sat cage side before, and you've interviewed fighters. You've interviewed Dana White. And you can speak on what it's like to be that close to the ring and to be in weigh-ins and watching these guys come up here dehydrated. I mean, you've seen it all live, and that's the kind of science that we like to talk about here on the show, especially like where these guys train, how they train, so you bring a different perspective, being out in Arizona, being around some of the best fight camps out there. But can you imagine the energy? Like, I just felt some energy through my TV from Perth, Australia. Did you feel that like I did?
Oh man, yeah. That's the thing. Like, this sport will grab you. And Dana White has always said this from day one. He always knew he had an ace in the hole, Jeff. He knew that whenever he got whoever into a building for a live UFC event, whether it be someone who didn't want to fight for them, someone who didn't want to sponsor them, someone who didn't want to be a fan, he always knew that once he got you in that building for a live show, you're hooked. You're not going anywhere. You're a fan for life. And once you experience that, I mean, on TV, it's enough. I mean, you get pumped up when you're, but my boy AL3 lives here in Phoenix, who's the UFC DJ. He's a huge part of that live show. So when you have the music and the fights and the walkouts and the knockouts and the submissions, and oh man, it's just in person. I've always said hockey's the best sport to watch in person. UFC and MMA is, even if it's not a UFC event. I'm spoiled. I only really
Yeah.
talk about and cover the UFC, a little bit of Bellator here and there. But I mean, look, there's the NFL and there's everyone else, and there's the UFC and there's everyone else. Doesn't mean there aren't great stories, doesn't mean there aren't great athletes, but I
Yeah.
try not to talk about Bellator as much as I possibly can because I just don't like the way they do things. I don't like the way they trot out these 50-year-old fighters 10, 12, 15 years too late and let a legend like Fedor take that kind of damage and then bring all those guys into the cage to celebrate it. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous. What are you celebrating? A guy who should be freaking sipping strained peas through a straw in a retirement home, and you're still wheeling him out there to get crushed by Ryan Bader. That's elderly abuse, and that's Bellator. All these fighters, and I hate to infringe on anyone's ability to make a living, but the Hoist Gracies, the Shamrocks, and God forbid Kimbo and Dada. But the UFC's done it with CM Punk. I understand that. But when you start rolling out what the BKFC is doing in New Mexico is criminal. They should all be arrested for what they're doing to Diego Sanchez. He's gonna fight a boxing champion, a guy who fought Canelo. Okay, you're gonna
What?
fight a guy who fought Canelo and Austin Trout in bare knuckle. And number one, whoever sanctioned this should be in jail. And number two, bare knuckle should not exist. I'm tired of this sport. I'm tired of guys who have taken way too much punishment, been beaten into oblivion. Who goes over to bare knuckle? The Chris Liebens, the Diego Sanchez, the Mike Perrys.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all good now, but wait 10 years. Did you see those guys walking in the cage with Fedor? They're my age. I'm 51. They look like they're 90 years old. There's a reason the UFC's never done that. It's a bad look for the sport. The regulations were there, but the protection for these guys, and I hate to even think about it, but bare knuckle, and then for Bellator at their age with so many old fighters, I wasn't in the mood to celebrate Fedor's career.
Yeah.
And
I
it just was too ick for me.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. I think Fedor had a great career. He never made it over to the UFC, which kind of, puts question in my mind, like what would he have been over in the UFC? I know that's what a lot of people have said, but I certainly enjoyed watching him when he was younger. But
too.
I think ultimately, Jake Paul's going to come in and save the day for all these fighters. What do you think?
Hey, you know what? Jake Paul's doing what Tiger Woods did, man, and he's not. No, I'm not. Hold on.
I see you, Jake Paul.
He's not dominating. Yeah, you need the Alchemist welding swimming goggles.
The Alchemist sees Jake Paul, what he's trying to do.
So Jake Paul is trying to change the sport. He's trying to get publicity for himself first and foremost, but he's trying to create that union. He signed with PFL. I mean, look, I heard rumors Sean Merriman's buying PFL. Lights Out, former NFL linebacker, has an MMA promotion in SoCal.
Yep.
I heard he's put a group together and they're buying PFL. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I heard over Super Bowl weekend. My ears to the street out here in Arizona. Yep. And I think about it, that'd be a good move for the PFL because the PFL needs something, anything to get attention. And now they have Jake Paul.
Off the ground.
But let's be real, right? I mean, these circus fights, Jake Paul and Tommy Fury's great. I love it. Let them do their thing. Jake Paul and Woodley, I mean, it's awesome. Let the guys make their money as long as they're not getting too badly damaged, whatever. But I'm just tired of MMA fighters having to go over and box these guys with pillows on their hands who won't fight each other. They won't fight the best fighters in their own sport because they know better. But they'll fight anybody else and bring them over to make money. And it's a completely different type of training, as you know, MMA boxing versus regular boxing. Because wait, you don't have to worry about a takedown. You don't have to worry about elbows, knees, kicks. Oh, it's a lot easier to focus on just boxing when you don't have to worry about all the other things that real fighters can do to you. And I'm not saying boxers aren't real fighters, but they aren't real fighters.
And I'll tell you, and I agree with you 100% on that as well. But I got to tell you, Jake Paul is no dummy for the people that he picks out to put in that ring with him. And there's some of the same people you probably see in the Bellator ring. So,
PFL.
Enough talk.
Ngannou's not going to be one of them, Jeff. Just for the record, I've been saying it over and over again. Francis Ngannou will be back in the UFC. He's going to go do his boxing match. He's going to get his brains beat in by Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder. And if he still has a head left, he'll come back and fight in the UFC because there's nothing for him in Bellator. There's nothing for him in PFL. And that's just is what it is. Look, John Jones beats Cyril Gane. Then he beats Stipe. The UFC will pay Francis 100 Brinks trucks because he'll be the only fight left. If Jones is still undefeated and everybody goes, yeah, but Ngannou, let's not forget, he's not gone forever.
So what's your take on, I'm kind of excited about the comeback for John Jones. I know, he might or was going to go down as one of the best ever, and took some time off out of the ring. So he's going to be making a big comeback. What is your take on Jones versus Gagne? What do you think about that matchup?
Cyril Gahn is a complete MMA fighter. I mean, Francis beat him with the wrestling, which is very scary going into this fight. For him, when you're facing John Jones with that wrestling and those elbows and those knees, the fight IQ of John Jones, and people love to rip him and say things about him. He's been his own worst enemy. We know the stories, we know the stuff that he's been through, but there's no denying it. And I call him undefeated because the Hamill fight was so stupid. But John Jones is the greatest fighter of all time. He cleaned out 3 divisions at light heavyweight. He cleaned out the GOAT division with Shogun, who he won the belt from, and Machida, and Rampage, and Rashad Evans, and all those guys. Then it was all the guys in his age, his group, his generation, when him and Ryan Bader were both undefeated. Bader wasn't undefeated. I was working with Bader at the time. Bader was destroying everybody. John Jones went right through him like he wasn't even there. That's how great he was. Then it was, the Cormiers, the Gustafsons, the Rumbles, and the Glovers, and that generation. Then it became Lionheart Smith, Thiago Santos, Dominic Reyes. Nothing left for him at light heavyweight. He goes to heavyweight. For 3 years, they go back and forth. Is he going to fight Stipe? Is he going to fight Ngannou? And he ends up with Cyril Gahn. So if he loses to Cyril Gahn, I have never said this, and very few times has anybody really been able to say that the UFC really fucked up. But in this case, if Jones loses to Cyril Gahn before fighting Stipe or Francis Ngannou, they really fucked up. They really
All
fucked
right.
up.
I love it. I love it. The Alchemist is busy in the lab. We're looking at a couple more things. I know you got to go soon here.
Jones wins, by the way. Just so you know,
what's
Jeff.
that?
Jones is going to win that fight. John's going to win that fight.
You got
Easy.
John? All right.
Yeah.
I like Jones too, man. That's my guy.
TKO.
So we also have Chandler McGregor coming up on the Tough Show. And then obviously I wanted you to talk about your boy Bader real quick. And honestly, do you think Bader could be fighting in the UFC right now?
Oh, yeah.
He looks good.
Doubt. Yeah, Bader's great. The thing about Ryan, and I love Ryan, he's by the way, one of the nicest dudes I've ever met. We did a show together for 4 years, and 2 of them were on the radio, on ESPN radio in Arizona, and it was the first one ever on a major sports station in the country. So I always have a place in my heart. The nicest guy I've met in the sport. If it's not Ryan Bader, he's right there. I mean, he is legit a great, great dude. Not a dude you want to mess with, obviously, but a great dude. In the UFC, he was at the top of the heap in the light heavyweight division. He beat everybody except the best of the best, except the Rumbles, except the Glovers. He had Glover really in trouble in Brazil, if you remember. But he beat everybody else and then lost to the best of the best. There's a lot of guys like that in the UFC. That's as far as Bader was going to go. I think he could have fought in the UFC forever. He would have slid down maybe in the rankings and had one of those, like we're going to see Jim Miller this weekend, maybe like a Jim Miller type career.
Mayhem Miller.
Man, it's like a guy who's if Bader weren't taking much damage in his fights and he's making a lot of money, and right now he isn't, and he is making a lot of money, so he can go for a long time. But the reason he went to Bellator, Jeff, is simple. It's money. He's got a ton of sponsors who love him, and he's making 10 times more money in Bellator because he's able to keep his sponsor money, and that's why Bader's still there. He's already been to the UFC. He's tested himself against the best. He's happy. He's been a double champ in Bellator. And look, being a double champ in Bellator is pretty damn good. I don't want to denigrate Bellator. You've had some great, like the Pitbull brothers and Michael Venom Page and just some Lima. There have been some great fighters in Bellator. AJ McKee's a superstar on the rise right now.
Yeah.
So they're not the UFC, and that's okay. I don't mean to say
even Chandler. That's who you mentioned as well.
Yeah, and by the way, whoever Chandler has pictures of Dana with, I'd like to see him because he comes over and he fights Dan Hooker, turns that into a title shot, gets beat down by Charles Oliveira, turns that into Gaethje, gets beat down again, turns that into Tony Ferguson, is losing the fight, pulls out the win, give him credit for that, and then he gets Poirier. And now he gets the red panty summer. Not just the red panty night, but the red panty summer. He gets to coach against Conor on Tough on ESPN Network TV all summer, and then fight.
Yes!
Michael Chandler is a chosen individual. I will tell you that. And I like him. He's a great dude. But the luck that he has had and the fights that he's gotten since coming to the UFC, he's earned it in a lot of ways. But Michael Chandler is, I mean, they say the luck of the Irish. He's got that luck right now.
Well, that's probably why he's faced off with McGregor, because
Connor's gonna
McGregor
smoke him
just,
though.
huh?
Connor is you rush Connor like Chandler rushes those other guys, you're going to sleep. He's going to get knocked out in the first round by McGregor if he tries that. If he doesn't try to wrestle, and if he does try to wrestle, his legacy's not going to be the same.
Break the science down for us, Jim,
Right.
right here on MMA Alchemy. Break it down for us, baby. The fans love hearing it. They love the predictions. They love the odds. So we got it right here. Conor McGregor.
Mystic Mac, baby. Mystic Mac
That's
is coming
right.
back.
We got John Jones. And then you got a local kid, Brennan Ward, has called out Hercules Rasta on the, at Bellator. So he calls in Jean-Claude Van Damme into the ring with him, takes a picture, and then calls out Hercules. So he's made quite the comeback as well, in a very quick fashion. So,
him, dude. I was happy. We both grew up. He's from our hometown, Waterford, Connecticut, right? So I didn't know him. He's younger than me. I was gone by the time he grew up. But, anybody who puts our area on the map is cool with me. And I love that, he's done great things in his career. And the one thing I love more than anything, and I don't know him, I've never met him. I know people who know him. And I know he's struggled a lot with some demons. And I know he's really turned those things around recently. So for him to turn those struggles around, and I'm not even going to say what they are because I don't know them, I've read them, whatever. I mean, I know, you know what I'm talking about. But for him to get into the position where his life and his career are really going in the right direction, and to get that spot, Jeff, on their first network TV show for Bellator, and he opens the show with that performance and that win, I just have to say how happy I am for this dude. And for him to be able to do that after some of the things that I've heard he's put himself through, I have to say, hats off to my man, Brendan Ward. That's a nice showing and a golden. And all you ask for, is an opportunity in life, Jeff. And when you get that opportunity, you got to do something.
You got to make the best of it.
Big things with it. And he just did a huge thing with an enormous opportunity.
Well, talking about big things, you're doing big things right now. Again, you're with MMA Weekly. You're with ESPN.
People's eyebrow? You just gave me a people's eyebrow. Let me see that thing again. There you go. Okay. All right.
I'm working on it.
So you did it without trying. It was perfect. Then once you thought about it,
Once I thought about it, both of them went up. So you're doing some good things out there. You're at the top of the mountain right now. You got some fighters out there. Hopefully I can give one of them a high five when we're out and about in Arizona. But right now, we want to thank you for coming on. How can fans find you on social media? How can they follow you, your shows and things like that, so that, they can also become fans and listen to all this knowledge, and hopefully we'll be able to get together again and do this again. So.
Yeah, I'd love to, Jeff, and I'll see you when you come out here for sure for spring training. And if you guys have never been out to AZ for spring training, the Cactus League is no joke. But I'm on MMA Weekly. I host the press conferences, the weigh-ins, and the fights live on pay-per-view weeks. We're going to expand that into a lot more podcasts, more interview shows all over MMA Weekly's YouTube and social channels. My own personal handles are Jim Gries _ and Cageside Gries, Gries. So check those out for all my stuff. And when I'm on ESPN once a month doing the Countdown Show, ESPN Radio, that's a lot of fun across the country. But really just, on my social media channels, if you guys don't mind that support. It's a big year. There's huge things going on with the UFC. Our number one goal is to put on events and do shows across the country, all over the world, when you're talking about the shows that make it a better experience for you as an MMA fan. There's a hole in the market around the UFC events where you guys are coming into town to watch the fights, and we're going to keep doing events to keep you busy. But more so than that, we're kind of filling in the blanks in different areas where we notice there's a void here and there in the MMA programming. And Jeff, I'm not one of those guys who sits here and goes, oh, we're better than this guy, we're better than that company. No, there's enough for everyone to go around. I love the Schmo. He's my boy. Dave, I've known him for years. Helen Yee, James Lynch. There's a ton of people in the MMA community who are, journalists and media. John Morgan, they're great dudes. I like them a lot. And there's no reason for anybody to think that, you got to beat this person or beat that person. You just go out there and you do the best you can do and put your own spin on things, find your audience, and make that work.
Well, the MMA Alchemist is glad to be a part of the family. He is glad to know Jim Grieshaber, a.k.a. Gries. And I look forward to talking about the fights to come. John Jones, Conor McGregor, Ryan Bader, Brennan Ward, all the fighters we talked about, and just enjoying life, enjoying these fights, breaking down the science. Thank you so much, Jim. You're a great guy. You're a great mentor. You're a great individual. You're doing big things. And for any of you guys out there that are listening to this, please follow my friend Jim Grieshaber, a.k.a. Grease, MMAweekly.com, ESPN, Arizona. You will find my man representing the UFC all around the world, baby. Have a good one.
If you need somebody
Thank
to drop some elbows, man, get some Muay Thai
Boom.
clinch going, you call Jeff. Or how about the Alchemist, man? You need one guy out in the 9th inning. Save they can bring in the righty. You got to get one
That's
righty.
right.
You can still bring in Picardi for 3-4 pitches, right?
He's ready, baby. He's ready. All right, Jim, thank you so much. That's right. I think I still could throw about 60 miles an hour, maybe.
There you go.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much, and we'll
Take care,
we'll catch up with you soon.
Thank
All
you.
right. Peace out.